across the theater.
Let's talk about what defenses they had. Prior to the attack, officers on the ground knew our troops were vulnerable. In fact, they requested additional force protection. Did they receive it?
Wherever humanly possible, force protection and counter UAS was always made available.
They did not. In fact, when asked to describe the base's defense, one survivor who's come forward from the unit said, quote, I would put it in the none category. From a drone defense capability, none. So let's be clear, no counter-drone capabilities, no counter-rocket systems, no counter-mortar or counter-artillery, not even the basic overhead protection that you and I had 20 years ago in Iraq, and now 6 of our soldiers are dead. The next day, you downplayed the attack. You said it was a squirter that squeaked through fortified defenses. But since then, thankfully, brave survivors have come forward to set the record straight. One of our surviving soldiers told CBS, quote, painting a picture that one squeaked through is a falsehood. Another said the unit was, quote, unprepared to provide any defense for itself. It was not a fortified position. Another survivor said the building's protection was about as weak as one gets. Secretary Hegseth, that is obviously in direct contradiction to what you said from the Pentagon podium the next day. So are you saying that these soldiers, our soldiers who survived this horrific attack, are lying?
What I'm saying is before the commencement of the conflict, we put in maximum defensive posture we could.
That's a direct contradiction
we moved 70
to what they said.
In this directing, can I speak, or are you just going to monologue falsehoods all over the place?
It's not a falsehood.
We moved 7,500 troops off of the X based on the intel.
Stop.
Based on the intel.
Stop. Reclaiming my time.
Because you yell doesn't make you right. Just because you yell doesn't make you right.
I'm reclaiming my time on behalf of these survivors. You just said what they said is a falsehood.
There's a much larger picture. There's a much larger picture at play here that included integrated air defenses, bunkers, moving people off the X
why, Mr. Secretary,
to ensure that they were not part of the target. We moved those troops and all across the theater, thousands of troops off the X, off of their bases, because we knew what Iran was going to try to strike, and we knew there would be a tragic moment. There could be a tragic moment where something could get through. Of course, that's the consequence of conflict, and we remember those 6 every single day.
I want to finish.
But don't play games with.
I'm not playing games. I want to finish with one more quote from a survivor of the attack, and I put this on the record. Telling the truth is important, and we're not going to learn from these mistakes if we pretend these mistakes didn't happen. Secretary Hegseth, those soldiers told the truth. Those soldiers are braver than you are.
I commend them.
They are asking for accountability. They deserve accountability, and I'm asking for the same, starting with you. And as I said a year ago, you need to resign immediately.
I commend those soldiers.
I yield back.
Hello, Bobby Jones here from MeidasTouch and Valor Media Networks. I've been saying it now for over a year, and I will continue to say it. Pete Hegseth should resign. And if he doesn't resign, he should be fired, effective immediately. He's been testifying in front of Congress, and this is the first time he's been able to sit in front of the legislative body to be held accountable for his actions since the beginning of the U.S., Israel, and Iran conflict. And needless to say, it was an absolute spectacle. First of all, the justification of the war, a legitimate question that Congress is finally asking, because if you recall, the mission Operation Midnight Hammer with stealth bombers obliterated, that's the president's words, that's the Secretary of Defense's words, obliterated Iran's nuclear program. So if that's the case, what are we doing here? Legitimate question asked by sitting members of Congress, to which Hegseth did not want to answer. He said that if you don't basically believe in what they're doing, you're not patriotic and you're not supporting the troops, which is absolutely insane. That is not the case. The fact of the matter is Congress finally is trying to do their job of providing oversight. So he did not answer the question, nor did he seem interested in getting into the details of what led to this decision. He basically hid behind privileged conversations between him and the president and basically throwing stuff up from the Biden administration, the Obama administration, to try to deflect from him and his job. Typical, right? So then we talk about cost. How much is this actually costing the American taxpayer? So he gave a number of $25 billion. And it's so funny that as soon as he said that, all sorts of sources within the Pentagon, think tanks outside the Pentagon said that number is extremely low. That number does not count the amount of money it will take to repair all of the bases that have been bombed out during this campaign. Bases, by the way, that Hegseth didn't even admit initially had been hit. It took social media clips circulating all over the world before the Pentagon acknowledged these things were happening. And that leads to part of what I think is the most disgraceful parts of his testimony. When confronted with the words of actual service members, those who were getting hit, those who have been wounded and watched their battle buddy die, he basically said, well, they don't know what they're talking about, or we did everything we could to protect them, when the people on the ground who were getting hit said that is not true. They did nothing to protect them. What was particularly disturbing was how members of Congress who had served in Iraq talked about how they had better protection 20 years ago than the people who were getting hit currently during this operation. It showed a complete lack of planning. It showed no strategic forethought. And the fact that Hegseth was getting called on the carpet is when he got the most defensive. And the fact that he tried to use the dead bodies of 6 American soldiers to protect themselves because Congress was questioning about it was sickening to me. Sickening. Moving on from even that, the fact of the matter is there's an arrogance to which Hegseth approached his testimony. You're getting your butt handed to you because no strategic objectives have been laid out. And the small things that you say you want to do, like get the Strait of Hormuz open, you have failed to do. You've blockaded the blockade and trying to claim victory. What sense does that make? If you're winning the war, I'll say it again, tell the United States Navy ships to pull into ports in the Persian Gulf. Just tell them to do it. If they're winning, if they have the maritime dominance that you say and claim that exists, then they should be able to pull in right now because they have established sea time and maritime dominance. Hasn't happened. As a matter of fact, you don't know what's next. You don't know what's next. And the thing that should scare America the most is the amount of munitions that have been depleted in this little side quest that has happened is staggering. We're talking 40, 50% of some of these munitions where you're pulling out of theater other munitions in Asia and other places to go there to backfill. Congress asks about that too. He didn't want to get into it. And you can tell it's really bad when the Secretary of Defense is getting flame sprayed and then they turn to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the chairman, military member, goes out of his way to say, I don't want to get into something that can be considered partisan. Now, I have watched hours of testimony by previous commanders who were the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and I've never heard that blatantly stated so many times. I've seen them evade the question skillfully, but never just say, hey, this is partisan. Why? Because he has no answer. He has no answer because the civilian leadership has not provided him a goal, a strategy, and a way out. Make no mistake, it's been leaked and reported by The Atlantic and other various news organizations that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and other military members did not want to do this, which may explain the turnover and the firing of so many generals and admirals since Hegseth got there. He was asked about that too. What did he say to that? He said, well, we needed new leadership. Needing new leadership is not an answer, a justifiable answer when you're firing people that have 35, 38, 40 years of experience who served multiple presidents, multiple political points of view, and were considered professional enough to do the job and had the subject matter expertise to do the job. Now that's all gone. It's all gone. And simple things like providing overhead coverage for places that may have or be susceptible to aerial drone attack. Stuff like that is now falling beneath the cracks. Food not being able to get to ships is falling beneath the cracks. Mail not being able to get to ships, falling beneath the cracks. All of these things, casualty reports, damage reports being fudged and lied about. All of this is happening as this man, Pete Hegseth, is single-handedly gutting the Department of Defense from inside, making sure that the capabilities to respond to things all over the world, to include Taiwan, South China Sea, other areas, Ukraine, neutered because of a war of choice that they did not prepare for. And you've had casualties in the hundreds, and you've had deaths in the teens. And if this continues, and if things go kinetic yet again, it's going to get worse. There has been nothing since Pete Hegseth has entered that office that showed that he is competent and capable of the job. And the people that are suffering are America's most precious prized possessions. They're service members, and they deserve better than that.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.